Hey there, it's Stranger, because that's what I am to you, the viewer, Michael Gross. Mike, in my opinion, is an incredibly underrated indie musician from Utah who's been a part of a ton of projects over the years. Most notably, probably of just one of the biggest Salt Lake City indie acts of all time, the Brobex, which he was one of the frontmen for from 2002, 2007. They had a cool little dual frontman thing going on that you don't see in a lot of bands. After that, him and Matt Glass, another super cool dude from the band, formed the project Let's Become Actors, and they still put out killer stuff to this day. Shout out Songs About Nothing, link in description if you're interested in this sort of indie pop saga through Seinfeld lore. It's kind of interesting. He was a part of the Statuettes, the Lazy Waves, a cool little power pop kind of group with Matt and Daniel Fisher of Fish Loops. And he is currently of Whisperhawk, his solo stage name. This might not make it very clear. Hang on. There we go. This is a Whisperhawk shirt. I got into the Brobex a ways back, and I thank that band for introducing me to some of the most talented and underrated artists I have ever seen in my life. Mike Gross, Matt Glass, Dave Chisholm, and to an extent, I still think Dallin Weeks is kind of underrated in some aspects, especially in the pocket of the music industry that he occupies. I'll drop the whole stranger shtick for a sec. I'm very normal about the Brobex if you've seen my main channel. I run a website about them. I know a lot of the band's history physically. I have been a likely minor annoyance in all of these guys' aside about a band that they were part of, what, like 20 years ago now? For far too long. It's time to put my mouth where my money already is, and I talk about all the other cool stuff that they've been a part of and done. I've talked about and probably will continue to talk about the Brobex to death, but for now I'd like to do a little mini-series where I rank the main discography of some of Mike and Matt's projects, partially as an excuse to gush about stuff I enjoy talking about, and partially because the Elden Ring DLC comes out in like 4 days for me, and if I don't finish this video before then, I certainly won't be once that happens. This video isn't sponsored or anything. I told Mike I was working on this maybe a little longer than a couple months ago. Sorry, Mike, that's who I am. And all he said was, thank you for taking the time, or something like that. And I'm gonna take the time because I think it's worth it. So all that said, today we are gonna be ranking the main released discography for Whisperhawk, all the albums and EPs he's released under that name. There's a lot because the man is allergic to not making music. I really do need to finish up this video because he just released the Cosmos Burger EP and is already talking about putting out another album that I'm super excited for. This video gets longer every week I put it off, so let's just do this thing. S tier is the peak of the discography, and then other things get progressively less peak from there. This video is going to lean in a positive light because have you heard a word I've said? I'm also not a music critic at all. We all listen to music our own way, different standards. This is just my opinion. Apologies if I can't really explain myself or if you find me just repeating myself over and over. Let us begin the descent into Whisperhawk. That sounded strange. Good Old-Fashioned American, the first EP he ever put out under this stage name. Good Old-Fashioned American was written pre- and post-2016 presidential election, and in general is one dude's take on the state of things in the good old US of A, written and recorded in various basements and bedrooms. So, just from the name, you can already tell that this is some American doomerism stuff from turn of the 2020s, you know, I think it released in 2017. But it's American doomerism with some acoustic dad rock backing, which makes it special. I listened to this through again just yesterday, and I was actually kind of impressed with a lot of the instrumental work on it, most notably on the track Everyone is Crazy. I'm so easy to please with those guitar chugs, and the whole thing with the piano kind of makes me feel like I'm in Jaws, you know, I'm anxious. I love it. His vocal runs over it are fantastic as well. For a first EP under a new artist name, I really think that this shows that Mike knows what he's doing. He had an extensive discography before he put this out. But tracks like Where Are We Now and I'm Not Going Out, they have this really nice drone element. That I think Mike's vocal cadence really lends itself to well. It's nice and gentle, you know? I can just have it on in the background. Virtual Reality has this nice rhythm to it, and lyrics like bars. And that's topical because I was at Goodwill recently, and look what I found. The complete first season for $4. I don't know if you can see that. Remember when this was the biggest cultural phenomenon ever? I used to hear my friends' parents talking about this all the time, and I have genuinely not heard a single person mention this show in like the past 10 years. Kind of whack. Anyways, I'm getting sidetracked. In the context of the wider Whisperhawk discography, I put this in the B tier. I gotta want to listen to Good Old Fashioned American if I'm going to listen to it. It's not a bad EP, and the stripped back elements make it more of a unique moment in his studio discography, but he can do better, and I know he can do better because Larks is my favorite Whisperhawk album and my favorite album Mike has ever made. Instant S tier. It builds on the themes of the Good Old Fashioned American EP but doesn't lock itself to them. No more evident than on perhaps my favorite song that Mike's ever worked on ever. Maybe It's the Pills. I just want you to listen to this. Chills every time. The theme of anxiety and medication, it's not like new to Mike's music. He writes about it a lot because it's something on his mind a lot. The Brobecks had a song called Sleeping Pills that does similar stuff, and it was one of the real standout tracks from that band. They played it to death. This song I view as sort of a spiritual successor to it in a way, and I love it, and you should listen to it, as the whole album. Back to Larks in general, this whole album is characterized by these bright acoustic backing tracks, the tightest drums you've ever heard, and Mike showing you his cool guitar tone collection all over it. The title track, Larks, is this really nice, easy, breezy track. I'm not a music critic. I don't know how to talk about music. And I can only show you so many clips. Early Morning Breeze and Broken Place are both some of the brightest moments on this album, leading into Chicago 51 that has some heavier instrumentation and is really one of the more standout tracks. It has some interesting lyrics, and I'd really recommend checking it out. It's got a nice vibe to it. The last three tracks you really got to experience for yourself. It gets heavier, sort of a bit darker in tone on Ultracolor Words and A Light in the Dark. But I don't want to spoil this for you. It's on streaming services. Buy it on Bandcamp. Get a cool CD like me, maybe, if they're not sold out. Maybe he'll sign it. Let's move on.
On top of a building in a faraway city, where fir trees surround me in a place that I've never been before.
Oregon mention. I used to live literally a walk away from Oregon on the very, very bottom of Washington. It was an interesting place to live. This is more of a folk acoustic EP that Mike recorded in a hotel while he was in Portland. Mike's from Utah, and a lot of the writing is about being in Oregon, I guess. The opener, On Top of a Building, is sort of like, ooh, look at all these tall downtown Portland buildings and this big hotel. Do they have big buildings in Utah? I wouldn't know. I've never been. I'll have to someday. Another theme the EP touches on, as does a lot of Mike's music, as it's a topic very close to him, is native displacement, which I think is why he was in Portland in the first place. He was doing a talk somewhere, but I don't really remember. The track In the Name of Progress, very obviously about the whole Manifest Destiny thing we did. He put out a single, I think, the same day as this EP called Wild Rose, and maybe I'll do a video about some of his singles sometimes, because that was a really good track. But it was in honor of missing and murdered Indigenous women stuff. I'm glad that somebody is talking about, and it sort of ties into a lot of the EP. So I think it's right to include it a little. City of Roses and Full Moonlight really accentuate Mike's vocal cadence that lends itself really well to these gentler tracks. It reminds me of this meme I saw on Tumblr once that was like, Brobeck songs where Mike sings. Comfy. Spot on. Mike even did a collection of like nursery rhymes once, and maybe you want to scoff at the artistic value of something like that, but he really does have the voice for it. In the context of my appreciation of this EP in the wider Whisperhawk discography, I'm putting it in C tier. Maybe with some more revisits, I'll appreciate it more. I certainly don't think it's bad. If you prefer his gentler, stripped back stuff, then definitely give this one a listen. A Whisperhawk Christmas Volume 1. Okay, listen. All them Brobex boys, it doesn't matter what project they're in, they are always making Christmas music constantly. Issue. I don't like Christmas music. I'm sorry, it's just who I am. My favorite Christmas song that Mike's ever really been a part of is Gimme Some More by the Lazy Waves, which I'll link in the description. I really do think that track's worth a listen and checking out. And look, it's not like this is some sappy, happy holiday time Christmas jams. It opens with Christmas with Mr. K, the K being Klonopin, I believe. A very large theme in Mike's music is his struggles with anxiety. He talks about it a lot, how he's tried a lot of different medications to try and resolve it and stuff. It's part of why his music is so relatable to me. It's Christmas, Put Down Your Guns obviously continues some of our lovely themes from Larks, and not all these songs are like a bummer, you know, there is some brighter spots. And Lord knows Mike's gentle tones make it a lot easier on the ears for someone who doesn't like holiday music like me. I will say the instrumentation on this did actually impress me when I revisited it the other day. Merry Christmas, I'm Sorry especially. I hadn't listened to the studio recording of that track in forever, and it really embodies a lot of Mike's writing. It's kind of peak Whisperhawk Christmas music in terms of instrumentation and lyricism, in my opinion. Regardless, I will be putting this album in the D tier, renamed Grinch, because, well, if you have the holiday spirit in you, maybe this will be higher. I wouldn't call it a required listen in the discography, but if you're interested in this kind of thing, by all means, check it out.
The strangest thing came over me as I walked home tonight.
An album I love so much, I own it on 2 separate pieces of physical format. Let me paint you a picture of where I was for this release. When I'm listening to music, I'm chasing an experience, and I'm pretty stuffy about it. When this album released, I was out on a huge lake in eastern Washington, and I just remember loading this up on my FLAC player, my little Fio X1, that's been with me for a very long time, going out and sitting on the lake for my first listen, looking out at these impossibly huge clouds roll over the mountains. God, Washington's such a beautiful state sometimes. Needless to say, that experience really cemented this album a special place in my heart, and I love it immensely. Instant A tier. Mike and Matt made this entirely within Mike's home, I want to say, and Mike mixed it all himself. The production doesn't suffer at all. Mike really does know what he's doing here. His vocal cadence is at its peak on tracks like It's Only You I See and Don't Let It Get You Down.
Set yourself free. Don't be a slave to anything. Everything will be alright. Everything will be just fine.
Man, if you just want to chill out, put this album on. The track Where You Stay is also pretty comfy and has a nice drone to it, but those backing vocals take me out of it every time. But if I'm laughing, it's a good thing. A lot of the instrumentation here is stripped back in a way, but unlike something where the Hotel Window EP is stripped back more unintentionally out of necessity because it was recorded in a hotel room, this album feels like it was from the ground up designed that way, very intentionally. That's how lo-fi it feels. It's another album you really just have to listen to. I can't sell you on it by spoiling all of its tricks for you. If you want to listen to a song off of it that may surprise you the most, listen to Save the Queen, I'd say. Maybe this album will become an S tier for me soon, but the S tier is pretty hard to beat because
Burn those teepees down. Move them all away to some little piece of land we don't want anyway.
Keepers of the Earth. In Mike's own words, Keepers of the Earth largely deals with historical events in the United States of America from a Native American perspective. Violence, loss, displacement, and also resilience, dedicated to all of my Native brothers and sisters. And in my opinion, this is the conceptual king of the Whisperhawk discography. Sort of like his OK Computer, not to compare those two things at all. I absolutely hate Radiohead. But Mike's writing really is at its best here. He is laser focused on a topic that means a lot to him, and it really does make this album something special. He got quite a few other musicians working on the backing stuff on this one. The production across the whole thing is smooth as something that's very smooth. No more evident than on the opener, Goodbye Old Times, that really sets the tone for the album. I've already talked about how much I love his voice to death, so I'd like to give more attention to maybe his writing. I truly think that this is his most underappreciated work artistically, but maybe it's aimed a bit niche. I don't want to start a tangent on what I'd call artistic value, because that gets a bit reductionist really quick. Music doesn't belong in a box. If you thought something like Broken Hearts Association was a little too stripped back for you and maybe Goodbye Old Times turns you off this album thinking it's more of the same, the second track, Easier for You, blows it out of the water with how on the nose and grim it gets pretty quick. It's still nice and smooth, as a lot of Mike's music does get, but it's heavy as the topics it's dealing with are. Sleep has such a nice stark tone with these blown out backing riffs, and the chugs, God, I am so easy to please with those. The writing on Sleep is also exemplary. I really do lack the words because I think I'm bad at talking about music, but I'm gonna do it anyways because I like it. I say this a lot. I really don't want to spoil you. Give this album a solid listen and you might just find you love it. Party at Promontory is an amazing song, S tier all the way. Did I even need to say it? And maybe if I get better at talking about this whole music thing, this might get like a full review at some point.
Big man full of rage, trying to wrap his head around the moment things change. Well, I'm a victim, I'm not ashamed. I believe in peaceful protest, but not that way.
In 2020, and honestly ever since, I have been crazy busy, so regrettably I wasn't much involved in the rollout of this album and the 2 single thing he released pretty close to it. I didn't give it a real listen until about a year or so ago, and I was missing out. He says this is a year in a review recorded during fall of 2020, and yeah, what a year that was, right? Kind of feels like we're still trapped in it. A feeling Mike really is good at conveying musically is despondence, vocab time. What does that mean? It's like hopelessness, disheartening, loss of courage, all that jazz. You can imagine what something like the pandemic spurned on in his songwriting. This album revisits some of the American doomer themes from way back on Larks as well, which I think greatly juxtaposes and shows how much he's grown artistically since then. The opener, American Whatever, was instant playlist material for me. I love it, and I agree. American Whatever. I find myself saying that a lot. Great Divider is another really standout track from this one, even if it is one of the softer tracks, and I feel like this album kind of marks a turning point in his production of sort of leaving the gentler stuff, but Great Divider is really some of the last remnants of that. I'm a soft guy, leave me alone. What can I say that I haven't said before? I find the production on the record really interesting among his discography, most evident on the songs Mother Please and So You Long for Change. They're really, really great tracks. Just listen to them, right? I think over the years, Mike has really perfected his songwriting more than a lot of people give him credit for. I think some people say a lot of his music sounds the same because he dwells on certain topics a lot and sounds, but it gives him an opportunity to keep working on certain ideas until they reach their peak. A lot of his lyricism can be a bit downturned, and if you aren't into that, some of this isn't for you. But if you want to get real relatable about how crazy the world is right now, listen to this album, pretend it's okay. A tier for now, but I really do want to give this album some more listens, and we'll see how I'm feeling about it then. Okay. When I was first scripting all this stuff out and I was giving all of these albums another listen, I was going to put this album in the B tier, but I gave it another listen recently, and I've actually given it a couple listens recently, and I was like, dude, what was I missing before? This album is peak Whisperhawk. If this isn't what is, S tier, all the way. Mike put out an animated music video for the title track on this one, Cold Bones, and that's crazy for an artist in Mike's position to get something like that made. 6K views. Are you joking? Hashtag Cold Bones 10K at least, right? Are hashtags still a thing, or did Elon take those too? Everything I could say about the production and instrumentation and all that you've heard before, but it's a lot more raw, like some of his more recent stuff. A lot of the writing on this reminds me of Sunset Beach, an album Mike did with the Statuettes, that sort of talks about what happens when dreams don't come true. No more evident than on the closer, We Are What We Are, talking about a bunch of bands that never went nowhere. And it's like, dude, I wish I had half the ambition and like artistic work ethic that Mike does to keep putting out music the way he does. This album in general gets pretty introspective about what I view as his Sisyphean artistic task of, you know, making more music in a situation that doesn't necessarily look super rewarding. Never slowing down and just always working on what he wants to work on. And I wish I could give him and his projects the recognition he deserves, but man, I'm just one guy. I think I told Mike about the video that I was working on a ways back, and I was like, oh man, at least I think 7 or 8 people are gonna watch it. And he said, that's okay, I make music for like 7 or 8 people, and that made me sad. Together, me and you, the viewer, we can get that number up to like 12. I'm getting a little sidetracked, but you really can't go wrong with any song on this album. I've been giving it a lot of listens recently. A lot of it's gotten stuck in my head, strangely. I love the tone of all of them. Take A Black Eye, Shadow on My Wall, You Cross the Line. I give any of them a listen. I promise you they are worth it. I truly don't know what I wasn't seeing before. This is one of the best Whisperhawk albums to ever Whisperhawk. The other half of this lovely double album, though, both do have their own sense of identity. Cold Bones felt like it was, sort of touching on Mike's artistic grind. This one sort of embodies it. I mean, it's literally called Music Album. I love the CD for this and the cover art. Mike puts the dad in dad rock. Look at this. It's amazing. I love these things. If something like Cold Bones is sure of what it wants to be and very intentional in its production, then this album has a lot more questions. Its production is a lot rougher, it feels less neat and smooth, and I love the synth question mark, maybe just guitar with some weird pedals on it in the back on a lot of these tracks. The opener really sets the tone where the track completely changes directions halfway through. I kind of love it, how it's very directionless. It's kind of insane. Track 2, Fear of It, Missing Out, man, I get it. I used to have an almost debilitating sense of FOMO during the pandemic. It was like a condition. The song is good too. I'm getting sidetracked. Hysteria is a really good standout track on this release. God, I love the chorus Into All the Sounds where he's just messing around with maybe some more weird guitar pedals. I can't really tell. The Awful Truth and Songbird are more songs I'd really recommend checking out on this one. I love his vocal delivery on The Awful Truth. He's seemed to do a lot more recently where there's this kind of spoken word slam elements in some tracks rather than more so musical formulaic singing. Overall, this album's pretty damn good, all culminating in the last track, Closer to Morning, which is actually from Mike's first Let's Become Actors album, Research Your Friends. I love that album, and I might give it its own video someday. I love the song, and I'm glad he's given it some love on this album. I find it funny that the closer on Cold Bones mentions how Mike has too many songs he'll never play or more than he knows what to do with, and Music Album 2000 ends with one of said many previous songs showing the mirror reflection of the two albums, even if it's not necessarily intentional. I don't think. I'm assuming a lot of things here. A tier for Music Album 2000. I want to listen to it again already.
I've been having all of those thoughts again. I've been feeling strange. Well, I've been pacing around the house again.
Look, it's not my fault I only have positive things to say in this video. Mike just keeps making really good music, and I'm gonna tell you already, instant S tier on Anxiety's Anonymous. Mike seems to be getting a little out of his musical comfort zone more these days on something like this. There's a lot more energy behind a lot of these tracks. The comfy is gone, and that's fine. It doesn't always have to be comfy. This album obviously dives into his struggles with managing his anxiety, and likewise, it is all over the place and sort of bouncing off the walls to the best degree that a Whisperhawk album does. Maybe not that experimental, but man, just listen to the opener, This Too Shall Pass, and juxtapose it with maybe something off of Larks, or even just Pretend It's Okay, and you'll get it. This album marks the start of Mike entering the tone zone, in my opinion. If you watch his Instagram stories, dude is always experimenting like some kind of guitar science man, dialing in some really unique tones for his tracks, and it makes them all sound really different. I like them. If Larks was maybe too soft for you, or you just don't vibe with a lot of his gentler music, this is the kind of peak Whisperhawk you really need to be listening to. I'd give you some tracks to listen to, but dude, if after the first 2 tracks on this record, you're gonna know if you love it or if it's not for you. Links where applicable, I implore you to listen to this album. If every other Whisperhawk album has had good instrumentation on it, this one has damn near perfect.
Don't say it's over. I've been watching you dance on the floor. I know it hurts you. I'm just trying to keep my feet on the ground. Slow dive, real life. We just need some help to survive.
This EP was a real musical curveball that I just didn't really know what to make of when I gave it my first listen. He did the whole thing himself, except for the mastering, and it feels like he's kind of showing off a bit musically here. It kind of continues some of the themes we got on Cold Bones with commentary on his artistic career. Serpent in the Wind is kind of interesting love song that I really like hearing from Mike. I don't know if you've heard the song File Code from his Brobex days, but God, I love that track and that style of writing from him when he does it. Slow Dive is the song that you should really listen to if you really want something unique amongst his discography. It really interests me what he's doing on that track. Some of it feels kind of Let's Become Actors, but the elements of it that I'm thinking of are what I thought that Matt Glass would be the one bringing to the table, because he's kind of a weird guy. You know, I would imagine he's the one bringing those things, but to hear this stuff just from Mike is kind of jarring, and that's to say I really like what I'm hearing on this EP. A tier in the context of the Whisperhawk discography, but among EPs, I do believe this is kind of peak in a way.
Put on your nicest period pieces, and don't forget your 19th century dress. Please be sure to save a seat for me. There's gonna be a party at Promontory.
We need to open up a new transcended tier for this one, because Mike took one of his best works already, gave it more time to stew, took it apart, put it back together again, and it came out better for it in every way imaginable. The new track, The Birds Help Us Remember, is a really nice kind of palate cleanser between some of the heavier stuff that is the sandwich bread of the album. I can't really say anything that I haven't already about it. Party at Promontory Part 2, I'm speechless. I literally don't have the words. Conceptual king of the Whisperhawk discography, even if I think the audience may be a bit nicher than something like Anxieties on Anonymous, but that album's all over the place, right? The construction of these songs feels so much more intentional in comparison, and don't get me wrong, I jam to some Anxieties Anonymous, right? But I critically listen to Keepers of the Earth. It makes me think about what I'm listening to. All of that, and come to find out that every single element of this album, the mixing, mastering, whatever, everything you hear was Mike, and only Mike. This really does feel like the most distilled Whisperhawk can get. This is the pure stuff, and I really don't mind giving it a tier all to itself on top of the rest of the discography. It was earned. I don't want to repeat myself more than I already am, so I'll move on, but definitely worth your listen. This could just be recency bias, since he literally just released this EP, but this is the most in the tone zone Mike has ever been. I've been on a hamburger kick lately too. Turns out being a picky eater as a kid, I was missing out, but that's not relevant. Just the name Cosmos Burger makes me think about burger, and then I get hungry. He says the whole EP was recorded on a whim, and it does lend itself to some of the messier production like that of the Wasted Potential EP, and on his latest single, I Think I Should Go, which, man, I do kind of want to talk about his singles now that I think about it. Next time. Regardless, where I find Wasted Potential to be a bit heavy to toss on and relax to, Cosmos Burger is way more something I can have on in the background. My first listen to it was literally just chilling out on my parents' new patio. It was crazy. And I can really jam out without thinking about it. The opener, Dreaming, doesn't help, sets the tone a bit dark, but perfect for everything explored here. A lot of the backing instrumentation under the guitar chugs with the wild beep boops really do it for me. I don't know how to talk about music. His lyricism really shows on this EP too. Even if this stuff may not have been the most thought out, it really shows some maturity in Mike's songwriting. Mike started out his musical career writing tracks like Good Girls and Hey You, not the first songs he wrote, but you get the point, where you can really see just how far he's come. God, I hate the song Hey You. You want something actually negative said about his works in this video? There you go. I have no shame in saying Hey You is the worst song he ever wrote. It has more to do with the original mixing on it and how it's got like an annoying drone going on, but that was over 20 years ago, and Mike is an entirely different beast on this EP. Go check it out while it's fresh before Mike immediately overshadows it with his next thing. Whew, I did it. I ranked all the main releases of the Whisperhawk discography. Mike obviously has a lot more music than this. There's 2 cover albums I didn't put in here, tons of good singles and all that jazz. I will link his Bandcamp in the description, and you can go check him out. Want to know if you disagree with everything I said in this video? It seems like you're going to have to listen. Do you have opinions on Whisperhawk's music? I would love to hear from you. Put those in the comments. Let's have a discussion. I love talking about music I'm totally normal about, so before you even ask, yes, I'm going to do a Brobex tier list at some point. But before I do that, my next video is going to be ranking the main discography of another really cool, underrated talent from the Brobex that I think really needs some more recognition. One Mr. Matt Glass. These guys have put up with me asking them stuff about a band they haven't been in forever for long enough. It's time I talk about the amazing talents that spawned from the band. See you another time.